I'm going to give an overview now of how to successfully mount a Sky satellite bracket onto a wall to allow us to mount a satellite dish. So if we look at the bracket here, it's made up of two basic component parts. There's the wall bracket here, which would be mounted onto the wall, and then we have the actual arm itself. Now if we look at the arm itself, we can see that we can mount it in one of two ways. We can mount it like this on the wall, which keeps it very tight to the wall and can be advantageous from an aesthetic and also from just a neatness perspective. But the other way, and the more normal way of mounting, is this way here. So we maximize the distance from the wall, and it's designed in such a way that with a 60 centimeter Sky dish, that you can actually have a full 180-degree rotation off the wall, and it's quite advantageous there. So what we have here in front of us is we have a bracket that's fully assembled here. The U-bolts have been fully tightened in, and we've tightened it in such a manner here that it'll be suitable for mounting. So what tools do we need at this point then? Well, what we have to do then is we'd normally come along and we're picking a wall here. This wall is facing due south, which is ideal. All satellites orbit the Earth directly over the equator. So it means that in the case, we'll say, of Astra 2, we need to point at an angle of 142 degrees, or basically southeast. So what I do is I come along and I'd simply hold up the satellite dish at the point where, or the bracket where we want to mount the dish, and I grab a drill, such as the drill that we see here on the thing, and I just use maybe a 6 or an 8 millimeter guide drill bit, and I drill a total of 4 holes, the 2 top holes and the 2 bottom holes here, and then I take down the bracket and I change out for this 10 millimeter drill bit in this case, and I drill on the 4 holes here, drilling about 60 millimeters into the concrete. And then what I do is I get 4 plugs like this, these nylon plastic plugs that are available on the TV Trade website, and I simply insert them in the 4 corners, which I've already done in this case. So the next thing I'll do is I actually come along and we put the bracket up here like this, and what I'll do is I'll grab these 4 coach screws. So they use a 13 millimeter socket on top of it, and these are either normally 50 or 60 millimeters long. So what we'll do is we simply come along, we screw them in this top corner here, we repeat the process in the bottom corner. I like to just start this off doing it diagonally. It just helps to keep the bracket square, and we can repeat the process here. I just hand tighten as far as I can, simply because it's quicker to hand tighten than use the tool. And then the final one here is we can actually come along and we can see, even though this is a little bit off square, I'll still be able to tighten it in, simply because by not over tightening the initial ones, it gives me a certain amount of play, and we can just pull the bracket out to the shape that we need. So what I'm going to do at this point here is I'm simply going to use this socket and ratchet. So I'm using a 13 millimeter socket here, and we'll just drive it home here. Okay, and we'll repeat the same process, once again working diagonally here. I'll just do this bottom corner here now. Give it quite secure mounting on the wall, and repeat then the final top one here. So some of the professionals will actually have adapters for their drill bits here, which will actually be capable of driving the ratchet at this point, or the socket here, and actually just very quickly driving these in. But you can see the whole process is relatively straightforward. And what we do now is we have it quite tightly mounted here, and what we do is we just want to check that it's completely perpendicular here. So what we do is, if we hadn't already tightened the U-bolts fully here, which you normally shouldn't, we just tap this over slightly, make sure that it's totally square, and at this point we change out to this 10 millimeter socket, come around to these U-bolts here and tighten them in using the ratchet, and it will just lock them into a position here where it's tightly caught. So it means that at a later point, when we have the satellite dish attached, if there's a certain amount of force and wind on it, that it won't twist on an angle, because satellite dishes are extremely sensitive. With a TV aerial or something like this, you can have a movement of 20-30 degrees, and you probably won't notice that much difference in the TV signal you're getting. With a satellite dish, a movement of even 1 degree can completely ruin your signal. So at the final step then would be simply to come along, pick up the satellite dish. If we look at the back here, we have 2 U-bolts, sets of U-bolts like this. And what we'll do is we'll just slide it up and that'll bring it smoothly on. We're just tightening the U-bolts there using a 10mm socket, and that brings us smoothly on to what our next video in a series would be, is the actual alignment of the satellite dish to actually pick up the signal here, so you can feed a signal directly into your house. So that's it anyway, an overview of how to successfully mount a Sky satellite dish wall bracket.